something complex, but it's hard to elaborate or try to make people understand about it. I'm guessing.
Like what?
Like, I think I can't.
Perfect. It's a trick question, because if you could explain it, then you couldn't give it as an example. So any example that we could provide of something that's impossible to explain, obviously it's possible to explain it then. So it's not going to be a good example. Others? If you're paying attention, this one hit, man. There's something heavy on this one, yeah.
I found there was like a fine line between him getting confused like of like loneliness, as in where you can be lonely by just getting your own thoughts and being by yourself, and self-validation, where like someone could have a fear of being mocked, of like expressing like some like truthful thing about yourself and like fitting in. And because of that fear, like it pushes you down to make you feel small, and where that you can feel lonely.
Is there a way of doing that? What do you think? Do you think that self-validation can be enough? Or do you think that you have to get validation from others?
Self-validation.
Yeah, so in other words, if there's a view or something that you have, do you think it's enough for us to feel self-validated in our view? In other words, to be able to say, you know what, I thought about this, I'm right about this, or I'm valid in this way? Or do you think that we have to, kind of like almost like on a psychological or emotional level, we see validation from other people as well about our views? Like in other words, to be able to look inside of ourselves and say, I'm good enough. Do you think that's good enough? Or should be? Yeah.
You could do more.
Yeah.
You could do more.
I like that, by the way. Because most people will almost just like intuitively say, yes. You know, it should be enough that you know that you are right. But there's this word that we get caught up on a lot in life. And should.
Should or shouldn't?
Yeah. You should, yeah. We're shooting all over ourselves. Right? I should be able to do this. I should be able to do that. Yeah, that should be enough.
Should I say something?
Should. But is it ever really?
Yeah. Yeah. With the word should, yeah, it leads up to like, should I do this? Shouldn't I do this? And it leads to a yes or no type of thing, right?
It makes you second guess yourself.
Yeah, pretty much. And that's what it leads up to.
So usually, like, I like to do stuff, right? Like, I try to plan stuff out, and then I'm like, should I go here or should I go there? But like, if I go there, I might not be able to go there too. And then like, I'm just like mixing myself up, confusing myself, and then I go there. I just stay home.
There you go. That's an outstanding aspect of growing up, by the way. When you start to realize that you have to make those choices to go this way or to go that way. That you won't be able to do both. You know? And then it's the next step of maturity to choose one. And then I guess it's the final stage of maturity to be able to choose one and to realize that almost it didn't matter which way you went, because your life is you're going to gain certain things and you're going to miss out on certain things, whichever way you go. You know, like the example I've used several times is, we oftentimes will say, well, my goodness, if I had made this one different decision in my life today would be so completely different. And it might be, or maybe it's the kind of thing where you make a decision in your life and it points you in two different directions, and as you go this way, maybe the thing eventually leads you back on the path that you would have been in the first place. Or maybe if you had gone this way, you would have died. I mean, that's pretty extreme, but you know, by the way, this will happen to all of you at some point.
Yep.
At some point, it trips me out. I just think, like, people tell me all the time, I drink so much Diet Coke, they're like, you're going to get cancer. Maybe. Maybe I'm going to get hit by a car instead. But at some point, if I do drink so much Diet Coke that I get cancer, then there's going to be like one Diet Coke. I'm going to sit there, I'm going to say there's a Diet Coke or there's a water. And I'm going to make a choice that day, as I make a choice every day, to choose the Diet Coke, and that's going to be the one that pushes me over that line into cancer. Whereas if I had just stopped right there, gone up against the line and been like, nah, I think I'm going to take water instead today. I think I'm done with Diet Coke. That would have been the one that pulled you back from the brink, like the one cheeseburger that pulled you back from the brink of diabetes. Or the one fill in the blank, the one conversation that had you go in one direction in life versus another. Yeah.
Oh, well, an example is this Saturday, you know how homecoming is? But my sister was going to celebrate 15th that day, so like I'm not going to homecoming, so I might miss out on like, some memories, right? But I never brought them because I wasn't. Myself, I don't really see like high school as an important memory for me because I'd rather make memories with my family instead. Because like my little sister's growing up and I want to be there for her. I feel like if a punk goes up to her and starts bullying her, of course I'm gonna be another punk going to that punk, punking him.
Score up to that man. All right.
Yeah, and that's actually one of those things where you're gonna have to make a choice about the kinds of memories that you want to make. Because if you do go to homecoming, then you're going to miss out on other family memories. And you might think like, well, those aren't as important to me. Fine, no problem at all, as long as you're aware of that. And that's part of the greatness of it, is that you might think like, well, if I go to homecoming, I get a certain set of memories. If I stay at home with my family, I get a certain set of memories. The great thing is that, bless you, is that even if you're aware that by staying home, you miss these homecoming memories, you realize you've made a choice in your life. And that means that you've guided yourself, you've directed yourself. So that even if you had the sense of like, oh, I missed out on some things, but I gained the fact that I made a choice for myself. You know, versus that thing you were saying earlier of, I can't decide which one to go, so I just do neither. That happens to me, by the way, all the time. I'm completely aware of the fact that I am not psychologically equipped to live in this world. It's one of the reasons I tell you I am not a role model. I go to Vaughn's or a supermarket, and I stand there and I look at the prices on things, and I see the tags like, if you're part of the Vaughn's Club or something, you get this price. If you buy 3 or more at this price, or there's some other special tier of pricing, I'll walk in, I'll look at that, and I'll just be like, all the colors, all this sensation, all this stimuli, everything coming at me at once, and I just say, I'm going to go read Carl Jung. And I'll walk out, and then I'll talk to someone that they'll ask me, oh, what'd you eat for dinner? Oh, nothing. And for example, what's today? Today's Thursday. On Tuesday, I was talking to somebody, and they asked me what I eat for lunch. And I thought about it, and I go, today's Tuesday. I said, I haven't eaten since Saturday. What? And they're like, what? I go, I haven't eaten since Saturday. I'm like, really? I go, yeah. And I started thinking about it. I ate something Saturday night. I ate a chicken tendy. Not a chicken tender. Yeah, I mean, I'm not chicken nuggets. I'm a grown-ass man. I ate a chicken tendy. And I was thinking about it, and I'm like, why haven't I eaten? Actually, my mind's been someplace else. I haven't been thinking about that kind of stuff. So now you have to kind of bend yourself to force yourself to think about certain things. But anyway, my point is just that you can kind of get to a point where you look around the world and you realize no matter which way you go, you're going to be missing out on certain things. You're going to be gaining on certain things. The trip is that you can't know. Like, you cannot know what you're missing out on. You don't know what you don't know. You also don't know what you're going to gain. And what kind of things do we miss out on all the time? The best of all possible things that we can imagine. Man, if I had gone there, this would have been incredible. Then if you go to this, man, if I had stayed home, that would have been better for me. In other words, the better option is typically the one that we didn't choose because we can imagine how great it would have been because we don't have to actually live that life. Once you find yourself in the middle of a life that you're having to live because you've made the choices to be there, we can always say this is the worst of all possible things, but it's not. It's the best of all possible things because you got to choose to do it. The things that you didn't do, where do they exist? Yeah, in your head. In your head, that's it. They don't exist in the real world. They exist in your imagination. It's less important even than if it exists in a TV show or a movie. At least that's in some physical manifestation that you can view and be entertained by. And you can share that view with other people, that entertainment. But if it exists in your head, that's the only place it is. It's not real. So the only thing that's real, literally, is this exact moment that you're living. It's not even 5 minutes from now. That's only imagine. Scaling will be done talking in 5 minutes. Maybe. No. Unless something happens.
That's funny.
Yeah, unless something happens. And then right after you're thinking like, my God, he's already been talking for 6 minutes. And you go, but those 6 minutes, they're in the past, they're memory. They're no longer real manifesting in the world. The effects of it are. In other words, if you're thinking about a word from back then, the effects of it still are. But it's not still in the world in this way. So all that really exists is this exact moment. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to make a callback to that, you were telling us about the one scene in like Madagascar where the penguins,
Yeah.
they finally make it to the Antarctic and they're like,
Oh my.
well, this sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a lot of life, man. It's Scarface, right? You guys have seen Scarface? In the
Yeah.
restaurant at the end, this is it. This is what it's all about, man. This is like my whole life has been geared towards getting to this restaurant with this status, with this money, with this woman, with my best friend. And he's just complaining about how terrible everything is. Would it have been better to have lived in Cuba? I don't know. Would it have been better to have gotten a job and lived like a normal life? I don't know. I've been faced with that opportunity several times in my life. I've had people who wanted to and say like, hey, stop, you want to like settle down and live like a normal life and like normal daily boring life. And there are times in which that sounds really interesting. And then there are times I sit there and I've just thought, my God, I need to be someplace else. Wherever, I have no idea where that even is. But you just have like a pull or a sense that you don't belong where you are. You feel like you belong someplace else. Well, try explaining it. Try communicating that idea. You know? And it isn't that a normal, boring life is a bad thing. I think that for most people, it's a fascinating thing. What would be great would be to be able to live that life, I don't know, 4 days a week or 5 days a week, and then go back to chaos for 2 days a week and be able to intermingle the two. Good luck. Good luck. I saw somebody else.
Actually, well, when you mentioned like the two paths, actually remind me of a really good example I could use. Like for this type of idea where you say like two paths, you have members from this path, and you have other, and then you're missing out from this one. It reminded me of like this superhero that did this type of idea, like the Flash, for example. He basically like the one time he went back in time, saved his mom from dying, led to a different pathway to turning everything else around him into basically shit, let's be honest. And then later on, regrets the decision, goes back in time, undo what he did before, and then turns back to normal. Well, basically what I've seen, like he chose to go this way, and then he went back and go the other way. So that's where I'm leading up to the idea of two different pathways. Like, you could have done this. You could have just, and it led to like a lesson. It's like you either want to go back in time and fix the mistakes you did before, or like fix like a mistake that could have been before in your head, or two, you could just live with the mistakes you have and just move forward. That's about it.
No, you're not wrong about that. Like, I'm thinking, I was talking to someone the other day, and I have no idea why, but like, I don't know why I got into it with this person. I don't usually do this, but a friend of mine was talking to me, and we got talking about music, and he said, "So you were a musician, right?" I said, "Yeah, I was a musician once before I was a teacher," and I don't know if any of you guys are musicians, but at some point you'll do this. If you do some things in music, you'll get into pissing contests with people. You know what I mean by that? Pissing contests?
Yep.
See who can piss farther.
Yeah.
So he's telling me about what his band did, and I'm telling him a little bit about, I'm just like listening in, and then I played him, we were next to a store, so I played him some stuff from my band, and then he's telling me about like how his band did this like little tour thing from like 3 cities in California. They went like Sacramento and like someplace else, and then I think it was Sacramento, Los Angeles, and then San Diego, and how wonderful it was. They rented this tour bus, and I'm like, that's cool, man. And then I said, yeah, I remember, I know what you mean, man. I remember I did an 11-city tour one time. I asked him, you ever heard of the Misfits, the band The Misfits? And he goes, yeah. I go, yeah, I toured with the Misfits. You toured with the Misfits? Oh, yeah. And then he asked me about some band that I've never heard of before. It's a different genre. And he's like, oh, okay. So we were on tour with them. He's talking about how great it was. So we're kind of like going back and forth with this. And and then finally at one point he kind of goes, he says, oh, do you miss it? I said, you know what, man, I got to tell you, people have asked me before what my greatest regrets are in life. And there's a list, man. I could show them to you.
You too.
And then one of my deepest regrets was not enjoying it enough at the time. You know, at the time, I mean, you're living this dream that a lot of people would like die to do. And it's a band that I admired the shit out of growing up. I loved them. They're great guys, and And how we got to do it was a great story. And when I was on tour with him, I was miserable. It was 21 days, 11 cities in 21 days. And the whole time I was like, just like in my own head and miserable about the whole thing. And then you get off tour and then, and same thing, you're sitting there like Scarface, like, is this it? This is what it's all about? Now the rest of my band, they loved it, man. They were all about it. They were like, we gotta do more of this. We gotta get back on the road. And I sat there at a crossroad and I was just like, can I really see myself doing this for the rest of my life? Or trying to even. Because no one, I mean, very few people ever do music for the rest of their lives. You'll have like 1 or 2 records and that's pretty much it. And you gotta settle your mind into that. And then as I was talking to my friend the other day and he was asking me about this and I was telling him that it was a regret. And I was thinking back to some of my, like what then would have been some of my greatest memories. And there were great memories there. There were great memories on stage, man. There are great memories on stage. And that's what it is. It's like moments punctuated that you remember. And then I said to him, the strangest thing is that the greatest memory I can think of in my head, I've got 2. And one of them that ties for it is going to the market late at night with a friend of mine. We're sitting there at home, and then I said, I want cake. And she's like, I want cake too. I'm like, let's go get cake. It's like whatever it was, like 10 o'clock at night. It's just, so we went down to the market and we got cake. A little slices of cake, that was it. Or I was on stage in front of 7,000 screaming people. Which one's better? It was the cake. And I think back to it, and a big difference of it was that when I was in the middle of the cake experience, I knew it was a great experience. I knew it was going to be a fantastic memory. And I even looked at it and thought to myself about the person, this person may be gone from my life someday. This memory will still linger, of course. And the thing with the music was, I didn't enjoy it in the moment. I didn't realize at that moment this is going to be a great memory. And so now I have to look back to it in the place that doesn't exist, in my imagination, in my memory, and think about what it could have been otherwise. But that memory of going to the market and getting cake at night, I was in that moment realizing at that time this is going to be a great memory. I didn't have to go back and construct it later. It's like I think about one of my greatest memories. I actually have a picture of it. I'm standing in the Mediterranean Ocean holding a rifle. It's a long story. And I was standing there and I was just thinking like, I'm really happy right now for some reason, And someone took a picture of it. Someone had a camera on the beach, they're taking pictures. They took a picture exactly at that moment. And I turned and this person was there, and I was in Israel, and they sent me the picture. So I actually still have that picture today of this moment when I was standing thinking like, I'm looking out the ocean going, I'm really happy right now. And so you have like at that moment. And so I guess my point is that it's being able to recognize in the moment when a moment is great. And that way you don't have to go back and reconstruct it later and realize, I should have enjoyed that more. I should have enjoyed that more. But understand what you also get from that. You get a longing to go back to that moment. I wish I could go back to the market at 10 o'clock and do that. Because even though you do it again afterwards or you do other things, it's never quite the same as that one moment. Nobody steps into the same river twice. Because either the river's changed or you've changed. And so you never get to experience the same thing twice. Every single experience you have is that moment, and it's valuable, and it's useful, and it's beautiful in that moment only. And then it's past. And the second that you start to apprehend it, the second that you start to grab hold of it, to understand it, and to feel it, it's gone. And then the next moment is coming through. And there's a tragedy that's there because you start to realize that once you start to apprehend the moment's actually from the past. And you're trying to hold on to it in the present. And at that time, you're also missing what's happening to you in your life right now. And so this is one of the things about analyzing every situation. If you're that person who feels like you have to analyze and understand everything around you, while you're trying to slow down time, it's still going. And so all those other experiences are passing you by as you're trying to hold on to this one moment, which is gone. Might as well, it ceased to be. It's no longer there. And this is the same with people. If you want to put it into a darker or broader context, the people that you try to hold on to, it's probably a memory of what that person was like, or an idealization of what that person was like, or at least it's a snapshot of what that person was like at that moment. And of course, that's you at that moment, also trying to hold on to that memory of what that person was like. And all the things I'm talking about here, I wonder if I met you at a party, and you come up and ask me, hey, what's your name, man? Oh, Scallon, nice to meet you. And you ask me, so tell me, start talking to me. And then all of a sudden I start talking to you all this stuff. If you used to then go, all right, man, good talking. In other words, if you're trying to talk about the things that are important to you, things that are meaningful to you, and yet there's nobody around who can understand them. Or you're trying to explain these things, and you don't have the ability to communicate it. And that's how it is that you can always feel alone, even though you're not really alone. In other words, you can be in such a place that you're never alone, but you're alone all the time. There's this song by a band called Bush. It kills me to say because I hate the band.
Really?
But yeah, they've got this great song. It's called Glycerin. And I was talking with,
It's like that.
I think it's spelled like Glycerin. Yeah, it's with an E at the end. I was talking to a different class the other day about this song. And then after I left the class, I listened to the song again because they have a line there where he says, I'm never alone, but I'm alone all the time. And it's such a melancholy song. It's just a guitar. It's like electric. And it's not like an acoustic guitar. It's an electric guitar and a voice. And that's pretty much. And then there's like some violins or something at the end. But the song is so damn melancholy. And he's talking about a girl. And you guys know what nitroglycerin is? It's like an explosive chemical. You make I think you make dynamite out of it, right? I think you make dynamite out of nitroglycerin. I'm certain I'm wrong about that, but I'm going to stick with it anyway. It's an explosive chemical. That's the important thing. So he refers to the girl as this explosive chemical. In other words, she's the glycerin, he's the nitro. You put those two things together and they explode. And so he's absolutely in love with her, but they just can't seem to get along. They just explode every time they get together. But yeah, he's got that great line there. I'm never alone, but I'm alone all the time. He's trying hard to communicate these things that are important to him. And the neat thing is that when he communicates it, I can't stand this band. I don't like them. There's a lot of reasons for it. I don't like them. And yet, I can come across somebody, as I have before, in Paris, who was wearing a Bush t-shirt. And I didn't think of it. I was talking to a friend of mine about it, and I mentioned the band, and I sang, hey, I feel like I was wearing that Bush t-shirt. I hate that band. And then I mentioned, I said, but Glycerin's a good song. Glycerin's a great song, actually. And it turns out that his friend was standing next to us, and he spoke English because everybody over there speaks multiple languages. And so I'm talking to this dude who's like, how many thousands of miles away from where I live, and we can connect over this one thing. And that's one of the beautiful things about music or movies, art generally, is the ability that maybe I don't have to communicate something important to this person. I can just go, play, and then go. And then that person can go. We can nod together. And that's it. It's good enough.
You give like a look.
And then by doing that, you feel not so alone. It's like, some of you guys are weirdos, man. And some of you like the fact that you're weirdos, and you like to dress up, and you like to say things that are shocking and surprising to people. And you just think like, that's right, I make you feel uncomfortable because I'm a weirdo. And then, but the neat thing is that if you go to a concert, you walk in there, what's that? You're normal. Yeah, and now there's like 10,000 people around you who are just like you. And then you guys all get together and you're like, those people are weird, the ones who are not like you. And maybe even like you look at the security guards and you're like, not only are they not like us, they're the enemy for some reason because they're not like us. But for a few hours, you're bound together by other weirdos. And you're probably looking around like, is this how people look at me when I'm out in society? Probably not. Probably not. People probably are not staring at you unless you've done something to yourself to make yourself stand out in some dramatic way. But the point is that music has a way of joining us together so that we don't feel so alone. It has a way of, and so that we don't feel lonely. I guess I should say that. We don't feel so lonely because that's what I thought you were going to say. There's a distinction between being alone and being lonely. Some of us can be alone all the time, but we're not lonely. Maybe you enjoy it. Some people, you're never alone, but you are alone all the time. You feel lonely all the time because you don't have the ability to share certain views. Yeah.
Oh, what I got from the quote is that if you know what to do first, because he said like in the quote, loneliness does not come from having no people around, but from being able to relate the things that seem important to oneself. I got like I got the thing from the ex, which is like, if you put something first, like, if we know what to put first in our life, then we wouldn't be as lonely, because you know what you're doing.
What do you put first?
For example, if you're like, for me, I want to put first, like, I want to put my family and my education, and like, all the other things come second.
So which is it that's first, your family or your education?
If it comes to that, then I'd probably just choose my family.
If you're choosing your family over your education will suffer. So are you choosing your present family, or are you choosing your future family?
Probably future.
This is the thing. You follow?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the family that you're going to have someday is going to be brought into the world that you're creating for yourself right now. If you're creating for yourself right now a world that, 5 years from now, you're really in a great position to achieve some important goals. And by important goals, I'm not just saying like you climb Mount Everest. I'm saying that you put yourself in a position where you actually can raise a family, that you're somebody who's worth modeling yourself after. Because I think you know what I mean by this. I don't need to go into too much detail. In other words, the life that you're creating, the life that you're going to have in 10 years is being created at this exact moment, whether you realize it or not. Whether if you're following along, if you're not, if you're paying attention to the assignment or you're not. The reason for this assignment is to get you thinking about things that you wouldn't normally think about. It's to create this ability in you that you can communicate, developing the ability to communicate things. Think about the kinds of things you'd want your child to be. Because I guess I'd ask a question like, if you guys had kids today, what would you want your children to be?
Someone better than me.
Better than you in what way?
Like, for example, like, there's certain things that I couldn't do. I probably